Any views or opinions expressed on KUR are not necessarily those of Kutztown University, Kutztown University Student Government, Kutztown University Student Services Incorporated, KUR staff and management, or other affiliated organizations.
Kutztown Live. Kutztown University Campus's campus and community interest radio magazine. You can call Kutztown Live at 610-683-4859. And now, your host for Kutztown Live, Juliana Jablonski. And good afternoon. Welcome to Kutztown Live. Obviously, I am not Juliana Jablonski. She is on vacation for the holiday week. It's kind of a little bit of a ghost town around the Kutztown University campus. Normally, I'd be looking out at 3 o'clock on a Tuesday afternoon and seeing scores of students going here or there. Today, I just see tumbleweeds and maybe one or two, leftover students. So they're heading out. They're getting ready for Thanksgiving. Hopefully, you are too. But thank you for listening to us, KUR. We don't take Thanksgiving. We're on the air 24/7, 365, including keeping programming like this going for the community. This is Kutztown Live, and we are doing our bi-weekly segment with the Northeast Berks Chamber of Commerce, and our fine president of that fine organization, Lori, is in the studio now with a new member of the chamber. So I'm now going to turn it over to Lori. Lori, happy Thanksgiving.
Thank you, Mike. The same to you. I'm very pleased to be here to represent the Chamber today and always on Kutztown University Radio. Today, before we talk to our guest, new member Dan Albert of State Farm Insurance in Gilbertsville, I just want to mention 2 upcoming events. One is community-wide, and that is Small Business Saturday, which will be held this Saturday right after Thanksgiving on November 25th. And all day, the retailers here in Kutztown, whether they're merchants or restaurants or service-oriented, will be welcoming shoppers and customers. We have been a partner, the Chamber has, along with Kutztown Community Partnership, in preparing some nice shopping bags with discount coupons and little gifts for the shoppers who will turn out on Saturday. And I want to thank our student interns, one of whom was here with me in the studio the other week, Kennedy Cavalier and Cody Geist, both from Kutztown Area School District. They're both seniors, and they're my interns this fall, and they've been very instrumental in helping us prepare for Small Business Saturday. So remember, come out to Kutztown on Saturday, the 25th, and shop all day long to benefit shopping local and your local community retailers. Coming up the following week, on Friday, December 1st, the Chamber will be hosting its first holiday potluck and giving tree project at the office at 110 West Main Street here in Kutztown. That will be held from 11 to 1. Members and guests are invited to join us. Bring a covered dish or a snack or appetizer along with you. And our student interns are also involved in preparing or creating Christmas ornaments for our giving tree. 7 of our nonprofits from the Chamber have submitted lists of suggested donation items, and I'm sure that our members and their guests will be interested in taking one of those ornaments with them to help support nonprofits here in Kutztown, but also in the surrounding area. So we look forward to that. Today, my guest is a brand new member. As I said, Dan Albert from State Farm Insurance in Gilbertsville. Dan opened his agency on September 1st of 2017. He just joined the Chamber in the last few weeks. And Dan, today's the first day I'm meeting you. So very happy to meet you in person and welcome you to the Chamber. Why don't you tell us a little bit about your agency and how you got started in insurance?
Sure. Thanks for having me. I appreciate the opportunity to come out and speak to the listeners and obviously get to know everyone and share more that we're doing. I spent I tell everyone, if you kind of go back as a college student myself, and I was fortunate enough to play college baseball at a school down in Virginia. So I remember graduating and trying to figure out what I was going to do next. And I wasn't really sure, but I knew baseball. So I actually coached college baseball for the next 5 years. And during that time, still trying to figure out until I got married. And one of the kids I had recruited, his mother worked in a nonprofit, worked at a YMCA. Mm-hmm. And she always told me that if I left coaching that she would give me a job. So I called her up, and she did. So I spent the next 16 years, in the nonprofit world, leading actually YMCAs in Virginia and here in Pennsylvania. So then it was time for me to do something different. And I attended a seminar on LinkedIn and started looking at some things, and was actually reached out from State Farm through LinkedIn, a recruiter, and we started talking about stuff. And to be completely honest, at first, when it first happened, I said, this is not for me. And they called again. And then the third time I said, well, this is what I'm looking for. I'm looking for an opportunity to remain involved in community, to provide education, and to do something that my kids and my wife at the end of the day could be proud of. And they responded with, well, then State Farm is the place for you. So we listened. I learned more, and what I found was an organization that is fully vested in the community. There's lots of programs and lots of opportunities for me to still remain in the community involved, whether through the chamber, supporting nonprofits, what it may be. What I also found was that the insurance industry, we may not be doing a great job of educating our communities on the importance of insurance, what insurance policy looks like, what it reads, the protections, exposures. So I saw an opportunity to do that, and I, like so many others, we dream of owning our own business. So the opportunity to know that, wow, this is mine, and and I tell everyone that having your name as a member of the chamber is a huge accomplishment, for me and so many others, just to know that you're able to start your own business and to be able to do that.
Yeah, I think that's very empowering. I'm sure it is. How do you think your experience in the nonprofit world over the last few decades has prepared you for working in insurance?
I think for me, the way I approach our agency is very similar to how we led the nonprofits. It's not about a quick sale. It's not about a quick hit. It's more about, let's have a conversation. Let's create a relationship, more about a partnership than it is just about how quick can I get your commission.
Yes.
And what I say, I spent the last 16 years of my life developing programs and opportunities and relationships to better the quality of life for people. And now the way I look at it is, it's my job now to protect the quality of life that people have created. And how can I best do that? And it's best done through sitting down, having a conversation, understanding what's important and how I can help.
I think people look forward to that because they're used to dealing with automated systems and, virtual reality. So I think that's certainly appreciated. I just read an article about you and your business that was published probably about a week ago. Experience working with Karen on this article and how it came about.
I thought it was great. They had reached out to do the article, and we had a lot in common. It was kind of fun. I always enjoy, one of the benefits that I have as I've kind of moved around is I get to meet a lot of people, live in different places, and Karen and her husband have some ties up to the Scranton area. Actually, a small town, Dunmore, just outside Scranton. And I actually ran the YMCA there in Dunmore. So we had a lot of fun talking about pizza and other stuff with the area. It was just all really good, to be able to have a conversation. Then I joke around about the photo shoot that I had the opportunity to have, and it was just fun. It was good. It's always good to be able to tell a story.
That's wonderful. What are you hoping to get out of your membership in the Northeast Berks Chamber?
I think I want to, kind of as I mentioned earlier, I want to be involved in the community. I want to be someone who looks to our agency and looks to me as a person that says, wow, Dan wasn't just here selling insurance, he was making a difference. So, I don't want to be just someone you find in the directory. I want to be a person that you see at events, at opportunities to lead, to educate, to, bring the groups together. Is what I look forward to doing. Right,
exactly. I mean, it's important to be engaged because it is a partnership. So we certainly look forward to seeing you. And I know you mentioned an interest in the ambassadors. The ambassadors is one of the committees that we offer through the chamber that any member can get involved in as a member. And it's a great way to not only meet other people and help to onboard them about the chamber benefits, but also to share a little bit about what you do with other new members. So it's a great way to connect with the membership. How can we get in touch with you or contact you about insurance?
Sure. You can stop in the office there at 361 County Line Road in Gilbertsville. You can call 610-473-0068. I'm also, I have a website. It's www.yourneighbordan.com. Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter. I try to be, lots of people want connectivity in a lot of different ways. So I enjoy when people stop in and we can have an impromptu conversation, or someone messages me through Facebook, or however they want to do it. I think it's the first step of, kind of the understanding.
Speaking of Facebook, when I was researching you today and even a few days ago, I noticed that you have posted some information about a polar bear swim. Why don't you? Are you participating in that, Dan?
Well, it's funny. I saw the event there happening and it looks like a lot of fun. And
is that in the Kutztown area?
it is.
Yes.
It's there. The Kutztown Park and Recreation Department's doing it, and so my initial thought was just, hey, people should know about this, and then I saw when you made a comment, I was like, oh no, now I'm going to be cornered into actually doing it.
You're going to end up being committed to the polar bear swim.
Yes. So it looks like a great event, and I'm all about when community people come together for whatever the reason, to be a part of it.
Right.
I'm not sure about that colder water.
I think when customers or potential customers look at your social media, they'll see very quickly that, you are interested in the community and supporting community efforts. I think that's wonderful. Is there anything else you'd like to add before we close today, Dan?
No, just that, I'm really looking forward to, getting involved and being out here. If there's some way, or whether through the chamber or somewhere else that someone feels like I can help, either with their insurance or just being a part. I have as we mentioned, a lot of nonprofit experience. So whatever I can do to support the community and be active and engaged, I look forward to receiving those calls and people reaching out. That's
wonderful, and I want to say that you are fortunate that you were able to be included in our new directory. Our print and digital directory will be published in January, and I was able to incorporate our 7 newest members into the book. So that was
great.
A little bit of a feat, but we did it, and you'll appear there. And so when people go to northeastberkschamber.com, that's an easy way for them to locate you and all of our other members.
Great.
Thank you, Dan.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much for joining us, and pleasure to have you on the air.
Thanks so much. I appreciate the opportunity.
All right. Thanks for listening to Kutztown Live. We're going to be right back with an interview with Professor Colleen Clemens right after this on Kutztown Live.
Like KUR, an award-winning radio station, on Facebook to receive exciting daily content delivered straight to your newsfeed. You'll discover diverse music, breaking news, and engaging student DJ content. Visit facebook.com/KUR1670 to join the fun. Remember to use hashtag KURadio on social media. We are the radio voice of Kutztown University, KUR.
You're listening to KUR Kutztown, 1670 AM on campus and around the world at kutztown.edu/KUR.
My name is Michael O'Mara. You're listening to Kutztown Live. I'm your special guest host. And right now with us in the studio, we have Dr. Colleen Clemens and we have Jaqueline Foran. So thank you so much for coming to the studio. Dr. Clemens.
Good morning.
Good morning. Jackie.
Good morning.
Good morning. Now, Dr. Clemens, who are you to this campus?
I am Associate Professor of Non-Western Literatures, and I am also, starting last year, I am the Director of the Women's and Gender Studies program here.
Okay, congratulations.
Thank you.
And what do you do in those titles?
So I teach classes having to do with non-Western literatures. So my dissertation dealt with Islamic veiling and how that is represented in literature. And so I do all those jobs having to do with the English department, advising, working with students, teaching classes, advising grad students. And then on top of that, I'm Director of Women's and Gender Studies. So that means I am responsible for ensuring the success of our 80 minors on campus, making sure that the minor runs well, that the classes are offered, that students are supported, questions about grad school, advising, all of those things.
And when was the first time you came, you stepped foot on this campus?
2010.
2010, so it's been a while. You've been here.
I've been here. Yeah, and I grew up down the street. Yeah, I grew up in Allentown. So
okay.
I'm from here. Yeah.
Okay.
So this is like my people.
Okay.
I'm glad to be here.
Okay. Well, for our listeners who don't really know why Dr. Clemens is here and why we're talking to her, let me give you a little bit of insight. Now, I believe it was about 2 Wednesdays ago at this time, roughly, Dr. Clemens tweeted the following: "Toxic masculinity is killing everyone. Repeat. Toxic masculinity is killing everyone. Repeat. Toxic masculinity is killing everyone. Repeat." Now, we are not here to talk about toxic masculinity, but we are here to talk about what happened after she tweeted that. It was an onslaught of death threats. It was an onslaught of people calling for her to be fired. They were calling her place of employment, her bosses, claiming that she needed to be removed from this campus, that what she was teaching was some sort of liberal agenda that needed to be eradicated. She was requested to be on multiple conservative outlets, including Fox News' Tucker Carlson. She declined that invitation due to the threat of her safety, and they featured her piece and featured her content anyway. That exacerbated the death threats, that exacerbated the hate, that exacerbated the calling for her to be fired. The university responded to several students on Twitter regarding this matter after they had an engaged discussion. The university said that they encourage learning, they encourage growth, they encourage our professors to push the boundaries of what people consider to be outside of their comfort zones. So that's kind of the brief synopsis of why Dr. Clemens is here in KUR. Something that I can't.
Can I correct that timeline real quick?
Sure, yeah, go for it.
So I wrote that tweet the Sunday night after the shootings in Texas.
Sunday night, okay,
yes.
My apologies. Okay.
And then I was interviewed by a reporter that I think did a really great job, named Rachel Frommer for the Washington Free Beacon, and we had a long, great conversation on the phone. And her piece, I think, because that is a more conservative outlet, spun everything into the media.
Okay.
Yeah. So she had seen my tweet, wanted to talk more about it, wrote a pretty decent piece about it, and then that's when everything started.
So that's okay. So that piece.
So by Tuesday, it was a Sunday night, and by Tuesday morning, I was being invited to be on Tucker Carlson.
I was 2 days back.
Yeah.
My apologies.
Well, by Wednesday is when things really spun out of control.
Okay.
Absolutely, you're absolutely right.
And Breitbart picked it up eventually.
Yeah. So then, by Wednesday, the Daily Wire picked it up, and then a week later, Breitbart picked it up, which is when it shifted from my ideas that Rachel had reported on to ad hominem attacks about me instead of ideas. Yep.
Okay. Jackie.
Yeah, we have some questions for you.
Great.
So, the first one is, when you disagree with someone in person, what steps do you take to have a successful discussion?
So I think if we think about when I was on TV recently and was invited on because of my thoughts about the Trump administration, the people across from me definitely did not agree with me. So what I try to do is find common ground. So, for example, we were talking about privilege, and the person felt really insulted that I was talking about privilege. And so I tried to honor the fact that, yes, his family worked hard, and yes, my family worked hard. And I tried to define privilege as, instead of coming out from the dugout, maybe he and I started on second base. We still had to work hard, right? I'm always trying to find ways to connect and find empathy. So I disagree with lots of people, friends, partner, students, but I always try to teach them that I'm fully capable, and we should all be fully capable of engaging with ideas. That's the other thing I try to do, is I always try to keep it about ideas. So I'm not really interested in when people mock Donald Trump for his looks either. I don't think that's productive. I try to teach my students that we need to keep it about ideas and not about people and personality. So I think if we have a good conversation about ideas and policy, and that's why I wanted to fix that timeline a little bit, because originally we had a good conversation about ideas and policy, but then it shifted into attacks on my own personal self. So I think if we keep talking about ideas and engaging with them, then we'll be okay. And you can leave a conversation having never agreed about ideas, but we can still be friends. Like, we can still interact and engage. And I understand that, my ideas are really connected to my identity. I understand that everybody feels that way, but I don't want everybody to agree with me. I don't necessarily think that would be productive, and a university wouldn't be productive if everybody agreed. So my stay away from the ad hominem. I don't like when people call Donald Trump Cheeto and all that. I don't engage with that. I didn't like when people called Chris Christie fat. Like, I just don't like that. I don't think it's productive. So if the point of dialogue is production, right? Production of ideas, then we need to talk about ideas.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I think that's a really great point. And it's really unfortunate that people attacked your character. I think they felt...
they said a lot of things to me over email that I'm pretty sure I'm not allowed to say on this radio station.
Goodness.
Yeah,
really bad things.
I saw some interesting things.
Really
myself.
Bad things.
Just not appropriate.
Yeah,
not okay.
Like really bad. Like things just like I didn't even know people could say to people.
That's it doesn't provoke any discussion, rational conversation at all. I know like one process that I personally use a lot is kind of just diffuse, inform, and discuss.
Yeah, I like that.
Kind of, diffusing the situation. So if you're talking to somebody and they get really emotional and upset and like they're very passionate about the topic, it's not really productive initially, because obviously they're going to start out being emotional, maybe be angry at you and not really open to having discussions and bringing up facts and statistics that either support your argument or theirs. So what I'm hearing is what you learn in composition class, right? Like having a good sturdy basis is why I'm a teacher of writing, right? That how do you get people to listen to you, but also want people to come along for the ride with you? I think that's really important. If you're going to shut people out, then what's the point, right? You want people to come along for the ride with you if you have an idea. Exactly. So does your approach differ when you're online? Like, do you... No. But, well, go ahead. I mean, I really try to have the same way, but go ahead. Yeah, no, I mean, it's a lot easier to share things online and instead of like, obviously talking to somebody face to face. Just want to get your opinion on like what you usually do online. Do you do the exact same method, or is it different? I stay away from insults. I try to really focus on ideas. Like, so if I don't agree with somebody's ideas, I will point that out. And sometimes I'll like link to a source that I think is reputable. Or if somebody's posting something from a source that I don't think is reputable, I'll be like, okay, like here, let's look at this reputable source and let's talk about this. I think I go well beyond what most people are willing to do before they like unfriend or unfollow. I really do see social media as an interesting place to engage with ideas. In fact, I really miss my Twitter. Like, I deactivated it after all this, and I miss that. Like, I looked to Twitter for interesting news, dialogue, conversation. I don't like when people attack other people on social media. I don't see the point. I don't get it. It's funny because it seems like you all looked a lot more at the social media. Like, I didn't know, Mike, that all that stuff was happening with Kutztown. My students were telling me about it, but like, I just stopped paying attention because I was like, I think the one thing I told my students to say is like, they're welcome to come take a class with me. Like, that'd be great or come talk to me. But yeah, I learned about that mini campaign, I'll call it, through other people. Yeah, it was several students. I mean, it was a couple students, but there were some people that were just outright bashing the idea and the reasoning for behind it. And then there was people saying, look, give it a chance, communicate about it. Here's some articles. They're kind of doing what you did. They were engaging. Trying. And let's just talk about it. Let's just discuss it rather than forming opinions beforehand before you even looked into it. I actually spoke with the person. His name's Ryan. I actually spoke with him regarding... he probably wasn't the first person to talk against this idea or against the whole thing. Against the idea of me or against the idea of the concept? Kind of both. Oh. And because he claimed that he even stated, I'm not that well versed in it. I'm ignorant to it, and we actually communicated priprivately. He stated, that's good. Yeah, he's like communication. Yeah, he actually was here 3 weeks ago. We did a podcast. Cool. Okay, so he's someone who is listening to reason. He's from his own. He has his own direct standpoint. But we were communicating. He's like, look, I don't think his thing was mental illness. His thing was this isn't something that should be pushed. This is opinion, not fact. And I'm like, well, it's theory. I actually have a PhD in this. Yes, it's theory. So this is right. I mean, and this happens a lot with women's studies and gender studies. People devalue it or don't. A lot of the comments I got were like, "Where'd you buy your PhD? It must be fake," and all those things. I saw that too. So this is something that's people who work with gender theory are very used to. I'm very used to people saying... It's theoretical. It's built to be proven false, or there's actually basis of fact within it. It's fine when people want to believe something, but I think what they're forgetting is that I have 20 years of teaching, and I got a PhD in 2009 on these things, so I've spent a lot more time thinking about it. So I appreciate what people believe, and that's why I would encourage them to take my class. Yeah. Now... Jackie, you have one more question. Yeah, I have one more question. So, as a mother and a wife, how has this harassment affected you and your family? Can I add as a teacher to that? Is that okay? Yeah. Like my job, or do you want to talk about that later? Sure. No, we can. Absolutely. Because as a partner and mother, I was distracted.
And my partner got like one trolled email, like, how can you be married to that person?
Mm-hmm.
I think it was my kid who's sitting in the other room. She doesn't really know this happened. She's little. But she's well-versed. She's been in the Women's March. Like, she knows the world. She understands. The thing that frustrated me the most is, as a professor, I felt really distracted. There was a lot going on. There was a lot of things that took away my effort and time during a busy time in the semester. I'm already stretched thin being a full-time professor and a parent. And so it was not great for me. And it was really frustrating because it was such a distraction to what was going on in the classroom. Even though I tried so hard to always like come back to content, when when your students are reading tweets about you've been fired and you're a terrible person, and then they sit in class with you and they like your class, they need help understanding that. They need help processing what they were watching. Mm-hmm. I think a lot of them said to me, I knew in theory this happened, but I never thought I'd see it in practice. So it was a distraction to my work in the classroom. And I don't like to be distracted from my work in the classroom. It's why I'm here. So at home, I definitely did not feel well. It did not feel good. And so I think just pulling my energy away from the things I care about for a few weeks was really frustrating. And it doesn't feel good to read threats about people have bought guns for you. And, do you contact your kid's school? Do you let them know? Like, what do you do in that situation? I don't know. I don't have a handbook for that. It was pretty new to me. I'm just like a teacher at Kutztown University. I'm no big deal. Yeah. So I wasn't really equipped for that.
Students, now this actually leads into one of my questions. Mm-hmm. Have students come to you regarding this experience? And when they've come to you, has it been different than what they normally would? Would they come to you in a classroom discussion, an office hour? Have you seen increased activity or decreased activity after all this has happened?
I have seen increased activity on social media with them reaching out to me to let me know what was going on. Mm-hmm. I know one of my students wrote about this for her campus because trying to kind of make sense of this. It's advising time, right? And I just mentioned I have 80 women's and gender studies advisees. So my time has been taken up by all of that. So I've seen them trying to make sense of it. And none of us really even know what it is at this point because it's so new and so fresh and still going. So they would basically just be supportive, or like when I walked into class last week, they're like, we heard you got fired on Twitter. And I was like, take a Snapchat of me waving to prove that I'm still here. And I was like, hey, so I'm trying to make light of it to them, but it's big. It's hard for them.
Because it turned into, in my perspective, a 40-minute conversation in a classroom. It turned into multiple people asking me what is going on.
Oh, in your class, like in a class about writing or something. Oh, that's interesting.
Other people are coming to me saying they had discussion. You brought this up to me this day, and then 2 days later, we're having a discussion about it in class, and a lot of people are pissed, or they're not really aware of what's happening.
Wow, that's really interesting. So I'm glad we're doing this, so people, and that's why I wrote that piece for Raging Chicken, because I really wanted people to understand the timeline of how this moved so quickly.
Yeah.
From
they don't even know what's happening.
Right.
They go, what's going on?
Right. And so everybody seems to get like one piece, but the whole kind of long story of how it moved from dialogue into me being absented from the dialogue, but about me, is really, I think, important. That's interesting because the speaker we had last Thursday, I unfortunately didn't get to see her talk about sex trafficking. I was at a conference. She wrote me an email of solidarity because I guess some students that she had met with before her lecture had told her about this. So it is fascinating to me that people are talking about this. Yeah. I guess it's kind of a big deal, right? Like when your university is dragged through the mud a little bit because of the actions of one person doing her job. So
to quote Tucker, Kutztown University.
Is that what he said? I haven't watched it, so I need to just be really honest. I love myself too much to watch it, but I have a bunch of allies that watched it. I heard he mispronounced it.
He mispronounced it.
Was he purposely mispronouncing it?
The second time, yes.
The first time. Oh, was that to rhyme with my Twitter handle?
That was a. I believe from how we said it, his cadence, that was him kind of mocking. it. The first time he said it the way most people say it when they first say
Kutztown. Yeah, instead if you're not from here, look. Right.
He put a lot. He put a lot into that.
He tried.
Yeah.
He tried.
But I mean, this whole thing. I mean, this is. I'm not sitting here saying it's negatively affecting people, but I mean, it's
a distraction.
It's dominating conversation.
Right. It's an unnecessary distraction. That is because. Quote unquote sources, and I will sit here and tell you right now, the Daily Wire and Breitbart, the way they reported this was not journalism because they never talked to me.
Yeah.
They never bothered to talk to me. So what the Washington Free Beacon did was talk to me.
Yeah.
That is journalism. And I knew that outlet had a slant, but that doesn't mean I'm not going to engage in a conversation. That is in fact my job.
It's the purpose.
However, if you are reading something like the Daily Wire or Breitbart, they did not reach out to me. Now, and I know there are other sources that I use like that, like Jezebel, for example, but I always try to click on the first source where it came from to see where the story started. And those news sources didn't. And then the Philly Inquirer did journalism and spent half an hour on the phone with me last week.
It was a full Q&A.
Yes.
It was a full Q&A. I've been sharing that like crazy.
Yeah. And again, that takes time and effort and energy. And Breitbart and Daily Wire did not use that energy. They are not journalists, right? Journalists speak to their sources. So they wrote entire pieces about me and didn't actually talk to me. I want you to all think about that for a second. Wrote pieces based on me and didn't pick up a phone or talk to me. At least Tucker Carlson talked to me, asked for some comments when I said that I wasn't going to go on the show. I sent them 5 paragraphs. And it sounds like I don't know if in earnest he said I wrote a nice email. Yeah. I mean, I was like, listen, if I weren't getting death threats right now on Twitter, people saying they're buying guns for me or that I should take a trigger to my head. And that's a play on trigger warnings, which a lot of more conservative sources have asked me to interview about trigger warnings. So at the beginning of last academic year, I was on a bunch of shows talking about trigger warnings. So that's like a play, but they're like, take your trigger and put it to your head. So, at least Tucker Carlson asked me to be on, and I said no. And, I'm allowed to say no, but then also that creates a vacuum. So if I say no, somebody else might say yes, and that's okay. That's something I needed to be okay with, which is why I slept on it.
Because this is what we're talking about. This is the conversation, how to deal with the fallout. How could someone in my shoes say on the line, how could someone who is studying to be in your shoes maybe 10, 15 years down the line,
right.
A public face, a figure, a representative, a broadcast individual, a journalist, a professor, and they deal with the same thing. And this is your life's work, and you're getting death threats for it.
And the thing that I told the Philly Inquirer is that what I was saying was not even that interesting.
Yeah.
And that's what's so incredibly frustrating, is that this is something. So masculinity and toxic masculinity is a certain brand of masculinity. It's not all men and it's not all masculinity. And people can read all the things I've written about that to learn more, or take WGSO&O. It's something I talk about for one day. My students watch The Mask You Live In, a Netflix documentary. This is not some radical thing. And we talk about masculinity for a class meeting. So this story became this professor is doing nothing but this. And I'm like, no, actually I don't. If anybody bothered to ask me, I would tell them exactly what I do. And I did provide my syllabus last semester to somebody that wanted to talk about trigger warnings for the Philly Inquirer. Actually, I think they interviewed me for that. I'd have to look. But yeah. So, this is my job. I'm not doing anything extraordinary. And again, that tweet was not interesting. It was just what I told Tucker Carlson was, if I had been on the show, if I had felt safe enough to accept, was that I'm tired of talking about it, just mental illness and gun control. Is there something else we should be talking about? Yeah. Okay, let's look at this pattern. Yeah. Let's broaden the conversation, because I don't want people to keep getting hurt. I don't want innocent people to keep getting hurt. I don't want a woman to get killed in her own home a mile down the street like happened last night.
Yeah.
Right? What conversation are we not having? Because if the conversation is just going to be the binary of mental illness and gun control, that conversation clearly has not worked.
It falls on deaf ears at this point.
It hasn't worked. So is there something else that we should be talking about? It's a deep plea for humanity, which is why when people were saying that I'm I'm like Stalin and I'm trying to destroy the world and I'm the problem, I'm like, well, actually, I feel like I'm not, but okay. So, yeah.
It's in general. This is a theory, and so many other theories. Like this isn't new to me. This I'm in communication studies,
right? Oh yeah.
And we've discussed. I've not taken gender communication, but I've spoken with many professors who teach it.
Yeah.
We've learned all the theories that kind of go around it in comm theory and nonverbal and interpersonal. Like this is not new information.
Right.
This is stuff I learned in 2014.
Thank you.
Like 3 years ago, when I was starting, and I'm sitting there going, why? What?
Literally, that headline about me could have been about any other person who's teaching intro to whatever it's called at their university. Exactly. I mean, it could have been, that headline could have been about
sociology classes,
anyone,
comm classes, English classes, anybody.
It's a basic idea that gender is a construct and not biological, right? And
it's driven in it's the theory aspect.
It's just
and people take
right.
theory as fact.
Right.
They say, "Oh, that's wrong." I'm like, "Oh." Theories themselves are supposed
theory
to
is a site for critical interrogation.
Yes.
That's what theory is. It's to push us further.
And there's a group of people, there's a consensus that says, you know what, this has some sort of validity. Like, we can talk about this more. Let's research more. Let's keep studying it. But just yelling about it, just sitting there going, we don't care, is not effective at all.
No.
All right.
So I'm Justin Schweitzer. I'm the editor-in-chief of the Keystone here at Kutztown University, which is the campus student newspaper, and I'm here along with our news editor, Jillian Baker. Say hello.
Hi.
And we're here with Dr. Colleen Clemens, who has come under fire from various people for some tweets that she sent out about the shooting in Texas and about how it's tied to toxic masculinity. So from there, Dr. Clemens, I want to ask you, for those who may not be sure, or even those who may not be willing to seek out the information, can you explain what you're referring to when you use the term toxic masculinity?
So I've written a lot about this. We were just talking about this, that it's kind of like WGS 010 basic one day of class stuff, but it's a specific brand of the construct of masculinity that demands of men to find agency in spaces of power. And so when a man might feel a lack of agency, that desire for power is going to be filled in different ways. So what I've been trying to talk about is that the mental illness / gun control discussion about these mass shootings isn't working. And maybe we should be talking about if there's a gendered component of it. So it's different than talking about, it's not saying biologically men are naturally this.
Right.
Gender is different than sex. And you can all take WGS 010 or become a minor and learn lots more about that. But so it's a specific brand of masculinity that is particularly dangerous to everybody, not just maybe a domestic violence situation like we saw down the street last night.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's something really important to point out because, like, as I was watching this whole situation unfold, as I saw the Tucker Carlson clip, he was just, it seemed like he took it as masculinity as a whole, that your tweets were an attack on all of masculinity and men.
Based on the emails I received from men all across the country, yes, that's definitely how that point was taken. So the nuanced difference between sex and gender was lost on a lot of the people that were contacting me.
Right. Jill?
Do you think that your tweet repeating toxic masculinity is killing everyone may have been the wrong approach in that it
No.
That it didn't
Go ahead.
welcome dialogue instead of I have no idea what your hand is.
I guess
I can say no.
Right.
No. I mean, a tweet is 140 characters. And there's not a ton of space for dialogue. If I were tweeting that into a vacuum and writings that I have done for the past years and blogs and podcasts and all of the other things that I create weren't available, then perhaps. But there are plenty of opportunities for people to seek out my ideas that are well beyond 140 characters.
I think that's a good point.
Well, thanks.
Yeah, you're welcome.
I mean, Twitter is not a place for deep dialogue, but and as I had said in the piece I wrote for Raging Chicken, anybody who knows me or would follow me on Twitter would just be like, "Yep, okay." Like there was nothing new coming out of my voice that day.
Right. Well, and you have a podcast too. You have all these different outlets.
Exactly. I write for Teaching Tolerance. I have a podcast that I do every week called Inside 254. I have my own personal blog. I have several academic articles. I've been writing and presenting and researching for years and years. So what I was saying was nothing new. So somebody else asked me in an interview if I regret tweeting that. I was like, never. No, not at all. Nope.
why do you think that this tweet in general was like sparked by like everybody else?
Okay, so the tweet isn't the story. So the tweet got picked up. My friend, who's a prominent writer, retweeted it. That got it onto the radar of a writer at the Washington Free Beacon. That's when, and even that didn't create much stir. This story is about when the Daily Wire transported the story about ideas into a story about me. And the Daily Wire did no journalism and did not contact me. And Breitbart did no journalism and did not contact me. So the Philly Inquirer contacted me. Campus Reform contacted me. Washington Free Beacon contacted me, right? They were doing journalism. And even if those outlets are a bit slanted, I'm happy to talk with them because that's about ideas. So the story wasn't really about my tweet. But then other outlets decided that the tweet was an easy thing to attach to me. And so then when the story shifted from an idea to an ad hominem attack is when all the threatening and it sounds like calls for my firing and things like that began.
Do you think there's a way to reach these people who are not even just disagreeing with you, but people who are reacting with such aggression to this situation?
No, I cannot say on air what people wrote to me.
Right.
It was really bad. So what a lot of you saw was the tweets, but what most of you haven't seen is the personal emails that were sent to me and my department chair and God knows who else on this campus. I mean, I can summarize some of them without, I'm barren, I'm unfulfilled, I am ruining the minds of my students. I think somebody who's going to take the time and effort to write such a hateful email is not interested in having a conversation.
Yeah.
But I do, I answered the phone for the Washington Free Beacon. I wrote back to Campus Reform. And I was willing to go on Tucker Carlson until I woke up Wednesday morning. I went to bed Tuesday night saying I'll have a conversation with you in the morning about it. And by Wednesday morning decided it wasn't good or safe for me. It's not that I'm not willing to have conversation with lots of people who don't agree with me. I was on the Dom Giordano show. I go with Business Matters all the time. It's not that I'm not willing to have conversations. I'm very willing to have them. But that very small slice, when you say them, the very small slice of people that aren't willing to even think about an idea and immediately want to attack me, I don't think so. And those aren't the folks that I'm trying to move the bar on. The needle,
right.
I believe in dialogue. That's why I talked to Rachel Frommer at the Washington Free Beacon.
Right.
I believe in it. If I didn't, I wouldn't be in this job.
Right. Exactly. Jill, do you have anything? Or?
Have you heard anything from your students, specifically in your classes? Have they been supporting you or even just discussing this in class to? Yeah, I guess further the conversation.
Yeah, I could hear them before my afternoon class. I could hear them all reading the tweets out loud to each other and just kind of being in shock. And so I knew that when I walked in, I was going to have to talk with them a little bit about it. They're really supportive. I think that some of them have taken it upon themselves to defend me on social media, which I don't expect students to do. I don't need anybody. I don't expect students to take on that burden. I have allies in other places. But, social media is really your space, right? This is a space that you all grew up in and that I'm kind of an interloper. So, we did end up having to talk about it because it's such a part of my students' lives.
Yeah.
They've been very supportive, too. Yeah.
Do you have any advice for students or really anyone who puts their ideas out there and then get either shamed or attacked, especially on social media? It's not always that easy to share your opinions without getting so much backlash.
It's really unfortunate. I agree. I think if we're sharing our opinions that are based in ideas instead of personal attacks, it gives you can pretty easily call somebody out. And I will do this. I will call people out if they're bashing Donald Trump for his looks. I will call people out for that too. You can always try to get people to at least circle back to ideas. However, I would not believe. I basically was on Twitter so that nobody else had to be. My friends were always I'm glad you are, so that I don't have to go on there. Tell me the second half of that again.
Well, I was just going to say, do you have any advice for students to...
I think you need to create a brand almost. Again, that tweet that I sent is nothing new for me.
Right.
if people know what to expect, they might trust that you're bringing good sources. I don't know. There are resources online if this happens. I don't want students to feel like they should silence themselves, but I think there's also again, backlash I can understand. It's when it becomes really hateful personal attacks is where I didn't.
And death threats.
Yeah, like people saying, I bought an AR, which I didn't know stood for assault rifle. I bought an AR for you.
Right. Yeah.
And it's for
we read that
me.
Today.
You what?
We read that today.
This
That's insane. That's someone's like go-to like message to put across. And like you said, it kind of goes with what your whole like tweet and what your conversation goes like
just
about.
prove my point.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Which is why the Philly Inquirer, I think, reached out to me, and then they had that title, like the headline was she wrote about it and then experienced it, which I thought was an interesting way for them to encapsulate their story about me. But right. Like you can say I'm not smart, and I'll just say okay. But when you start to say things that like take it. There were a lot of people who said I should kill myself. Like a lot of people. And then I finally deactivated my Twitter account because I was like, I'm not going to keep this cesspool open. Y'all can talk about me with me I don't need to give you a platform.
Right.
You can keep talking because that's free speech. However, I do not need to provide my own Twitter handle as your platform for your anger. But I guess that's when people started to email me. I guess the really motivated people who wanted to call me a bunch of curse words found another way.
Yeah. I think obviously beyond like the death threats and the personal attacks, I think the thing that really like hits me is that lack of information based. Yeah. Just the lack of information in their rage or their arguments or whatever it may be. I think when it comes down to it, I agree 100% that needs to be the foundation of any discussion we have, whether we take something personally or not. We need to have that informational foundation to be able to discuss these things.
Which is why you're your major and I do what I do and why you do what you do, right? It's why we all do. That's why I teach composition and talk about sources and talk about like, how do I teach you to be heard in an ethical way? And what Daily Wire and Breitbart did was unethical.
Right.
They did not seek me out for comment. They made me into a story that I wasn't. And so that's, I'm going to call that out, right? It's unethical. There's stuff on the left that does unethical journalism too, and I don't read that either. So I really want us to all walk away from this, like the importance of good, smart journalism, sitting down, talking to me, asking me questions. I tell people all the time, I will be so generous with my time if you actually want to talk.
Right.
I would have given Breitbart a comment. I mean, I don't know what they would have done with it, but I would have given it to them.
But they're not addressing the issue. They're addressing you.
That first paragraph that, the Daily Wire wrote about me was like, I am the problem. Like, I am the epitome of the problem. And I was like, I don't even know. I'm literally teaching nothing new or interesting when I talk about that.
Right. Well, I've followed you on Facebook and other social media accounts, and it is nothing. It's nothing out of the ordinary for you.
Right, exactly. It's all I talk about. Broken record, because I want the world to look a little safer and better. I mean, I guess if that makes me curse words, I'm willing to accept it. So be it.
Well, I thank you for letting us come talk to you and ask you a few questions about it. I think it's good that the campus community and just whoever listens to this, gets your side of the story.
I would love that. And people who want me to get fired, I think you should take my class or come meet with me and talk to me and see that I'm not at all what has been depicted in the news. And it really makes me sad because I think I have a good reputation on this campus and I think I'm really a good advocate for my students. I want them to do well. So when that's questioned, I want to speak up for myself because I think that's an important part of who I am.
Right. Absolutely. Well, thank you again.
Thank you.
You're welcome. It's nice to meet you.
Hope you have a nice birthday.
Oh, thanks. Happy birthday to me.
Thanks, Dr. Clemens.
You're welcome.